So in today's class, we are going to discuss various issues which were in news, right? Primarily, we discuss about what is that? Power sector reforms. Okay, power sector reforms. Especially, if I ask you a question, what is the meaning of development? Generally, we tend to measure the development in the materialistic dimension, the amount of materials produced, how the people are using such materials. Generally, it is taken as a barometer. But according to Amartya Sen, development is nothing but increasing the choice of the people. Only when you are having the choice, that is called development. Okay. Similarly, India also embraced liberalization, privatization and globalization in the year 1991. Do you have information? Yes or no? Yeah, okay. So, liberalization, privatization, globalization not only permit the private sector activity into the economy, it will also ensure the government to shed the additional burden. If you try to see the economy before 1991, what was the status of Indian economy? Indian economy was a closed economy and government was the doer of everything. So government has the responsibility to do many things. It used to run even the hotel business also. Airlines to the hotel business, every business. Later on, what happened after the LPG, the liberalization has ensured the government to shed unnecessary burden which is being shouldered by it. So it means government gradually started embracing the regulatory power and the developmental and as well as the other things are left to the private sector. So initially the liberalization has started with the banking sector. Okay, gradually it was spreading to various other sectors also. Okay, finally we are also even in the process of liberalizing the power sector in the country. The basic philosophy, if you try to see any privatization, globalization or any sort of disinvestment and privatization policy of the government, the bottom line is government has to take the responsibility of only regulatory activities. Regulatory activities means such as core activities of the government, such as law and order, public safety, okay, and ensuring the justice in the society. So that kind of issues can be taken by the state. And other matters must be left to the liberty of the private sector. Wherever the private sector fails, then only the public sector comes into the picture. That is what the sole purpose of the LPG reforms, right? So even the government is also applying the same kind of formula for the power sector in the country, right? So coming to the power sector, why we are discussing about this power sector? Okay, as you know, electricity is an important dimension of the development. Without electricity, there will be no development, because electricity provision is having the multiplier effect in the economy. What is that? Multiplier effect. Because it will be having many benefits. Are you able to understand? Yes. Okay. Right. So especially if you try to see what is the status of electricity sector, what is the status of power sector in the country? Actually, power has three important stakeholders. One is generation, second one is transmission, third one is distribution. These are the three activities which are run by three important actors. One is generation companies, transmission companies and distribution companies. Generation companies means they will be generating the power. Transmission means transco, they will be transmitting the power. Distribution means they will be distributing the power. So whatever the electricity we are getting now, that is distributed by the distribution companies. Popularly we call them as DISCOMs. What is that? DISCOMs. Distributory companies. Okay, distribution companies. Okay. So in the recent times you might have heard the distribution companies are running under the serious losses. Why they are incurring the losses? Because the very position of the power sector is in the bad position because of two reasons. Because of the government policies and because of the outdated technology. How I am saying it is outdated technology? Because for every 100 units of the electricity that is being distributed in India, 37% of the electricity is being lost in the form of transmission and distribution losses. What is that? Transmission and distribution losses. Why it is happening? Because there is no proper development of technology. We did not embrace the modernization of the power sector. That is one. Secondly, there is another problem. There is another problem. That is what? Government policies. You take the example of Telangana government. It is implementing, what it is implementing? Free power policy for the agriculture sector. Free power policy. Yes, governments can give the free power, no problem. But on one hand, they are giving the free power, they are pressurizing the discoms to give the free power, and the government is not paying the subsidy money to the distribution companies. Are you able to understand? It is giving the orders to the distribution companies to give the farmers electricity free at the free of cost. But on the other hand, government is not paying that money to the distribution companies. Right? So because of these two reasons, the distribution companies are under the serious losses. Right? So what is the problem if the distribution companies are in the serious losses? If the distribution companies are under the serious losses, what will happen? The discoms cannot pay to the transmission companies. Transmission companies cannot pay to the generation companies. Did you understand? Distribution companies cannot pay to the transmission companies. Transmission companies cannot pay to the generation companies. Generation companies cannot pay to the Coal India Limited. You just understand what is that impact? It is nothing but cascading effect. What is that? Cascading effect. What is the meaning of cascading effect? The problem in the one sector or one company that is reflected in the other companies in a process of a kind of chain reaction, right? So these the losses of the discoms are spilled over onto the other companies. Because of that reason, the electricity sector under the serious crisis. It means actually the generation company owes how much, 1 lakh crore rupees to the Coal India Limited. How much? 1 lakh crore rupees to the Coal India Limited. Okay, so it means this much debt burden is there on the electricity sector. So that is the reason why it is the right time to ensure the reforms in the power sector. So it means most of the problems in the electricity sector is due to the state governments. State governments. Why state governments? Because they are pushing the distribution company into the losses by not paying the money. Okay. So for the reason of free current or subsidized current that is given to the farmers, right? This is one dimension. And another dimension is, if you try to see the overall installed power capacity in the country, how much? It is approximately 4 lakh megawatts. What is that? 4 lakh megawatts. 4 lakh megawatts power. Out of this 4 lakh megawatts power, almost all 50 to 60% of power is sourced from the coal based thermal power projects. How much? 50 to 60% of the total installed power, it is being sourced from the coal based thermal power projects. Point number one. Point number two, if you try to see the coal in India, 80% of the coal in India is controlled by the Coal India Limited itself. How much? 80%. So because of the delayed payment, what is happening? The Coal India Limited is not able to mine the coal in a proper time scale. Because of that reason, the supply of the coal is being limited to the generation companies, so that it is not able to supply the power to the other customers. So this is what the overall picture of the power sector. This is what the overall picture of the power sector. That is one dimension. And secondly, Government of India also was party to, India is a party to Paris Climate Treaty. What is that? Paris Climate Treaty. What is a Paris Climate Treaty? This Paris Climate Treaty has been negotiated under the United Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So under this particular climate treaty, India has committed itself to the global world, stating that we are going to limit the rise in the temperature 1.5 degree centigrade. We will try to limit the global rise in the temperature to what? To what extent? 1.5 degree centigrade. It means we are going to reduce the carbon emissions. We are going to reduce the carbon emissions. So, for example, Government of India has also committed by the year 2030, we are going to reduce the carbon emissions by 30 to 35% of 2005 levels. 2005 levels. Whatever the carbon emissions. Do you know what is the carbon emission? Do you know the reason why the global warming is increasing? What is the reason? Carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gas. When the carbon dioxide concentration increases in the environment, what is the impact? The global temperature will be rising. Okay, that will be proving harmful to the biodiversity and all the living things on the earth. So that's the reason why we have to limit the emission of the carbon dioxide. So India has committed, we are going to limit the carbon emissions by 30 to 35% by the year 2030 at the level of 2005. Okay, right, that is one. Secondly, we are going to increase the renewable energy share in the power sector by how much? 40%. So 40% of the electricity will be produced by the renewable energy, renewable source of energy. For example, solar power, wind power, okay, biomass based power plants. So in that way, we are going to increase the share of the renewable energy in the energy basket. Okay, and this is the second one. Okay, and third one, we are going to increase the carbon sinks. What is that? Carbon sink. What is the meaning of carbon sink? It is a system which can absorb the carbon dioxide. For example, the popular carbon sink is forest. We are going to increase the forest so that this increased forest cover can able to absorb 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh million tons of the carbon dioxide. So these are the commitments we have given. You just understand the scenario in the broader picture. On one side, electricity power sector is in the serious losses. Losses are due to what is the debt burden of the distribution companies, and Coal India Limited is not able to supply the coal in the timely manner. Okay, so and generation companies are also not able to produce the electricity at the right pace. These are the dimensions. And on the other hand, we have committed to the global community that we are going to limit the carbon dioxide emissions. You just understand what is required. Requirement number one is we have to reform the power sector. In what way we have to reform? And secondly, we have to reduce the burden on the coal industry. In what way we have to reduce? These are the two questions. Okay, right. So for that reason, Government of India had introduced Electricity Amendment Bill of 2022. What is that? Electricity Amendment Bill of 2022. Actually, initially in the year 2003, we have enacted Electricity Act. What is that act? Electricity Act. So actually, electricity, it is a subject under the concurrent list. Subject under the concurrent list. What is the meaning of concurrent list? Yes, concurrent list is a list where the union and the state government, union legislature and state legislature can make the laws. Both can make the laws. In case of conflict, central law prevails over the state law. And why the subjects are placed under the concurrent list? What is the utility of the concurrent list? Yes, there are three lists: union list, state list and concurrent list. Then why we have created a third list called as concurrent list? What is the purpose behind that? What is that purpose? Yes, you must understand the placement of subjects under three lists. Under the union list, what kind of subjects are placed? Matters of the national importance. What is that? Matters of the national importance. Under the state list, matters of the state level importance or regional importance. Okay, and in the union list, those subjects can be better executed by the central government. Under the state list, those are the subjects which can be better executed by the state government. Example, law and order, sanitation, okay, local bodies, agriculture, health. So these are the matters. Okay, at the union level, banking, national security, okay, communication, defense, railways, so on and so forth. But in the concurrent list, we are placing the subjects which are nationally important, which are also nationally important, but these can be better executed by the state governments. This can be better executed by the state governments. Are you able to understand? You are balancing the requirement of the execution, you are balancing the requirement of a common legislation across the country. Okay, in that way you have created the concurrent list. So in that concurrent list, what kind of subjects placed? Education, environment, forest, wildlife, contract, marriage, divorce, okay, criminal justice system, civil justice, all these are placed. Okay, one of the subjects is electricity. Did you understand? Yes, electricity, do you consider electricity is a matter of the national importance or not? Yes, it is a matter of national importance. Hence, we have to make the legislation, okay, at the union level. That is the reason why union government had made the legislation. Okay, right. So the very purpose of this, legislation is to consolidate the laws relating to the generation, transmission, distribution, trading and use of electricity. This must be uniform throughout the country. This must be uniform throughout the country, so that one state can be able to purchase the electricity from the other state. Suppose if your policies are different, if my policies are different, definitely will there be any possibility of the electricity trade? No. So hence you need to ensure the uniformity all across the country. For that reason, what is that? Electricity Act was enacted in the year 2003, right? And now the bill proposes power distribution licenses to be allowed to use the networks of the other licenses. So just now I told you one important thing. Development means increasing the choice. Development means increasing the choice, right? So tell me whether all of you are using a single network, Jio only? No. Somebody may be using, what is that, Airtel, Idea, Vodafone, like that. Because it depends upon your choice. It depends upon your convenience and comfort. Based on that, you will be utilizing certain services. Similarly, electricity is also such a service where the consumer must be given a choice. Consumer must be given a choice. But now what is the present situation? You are forced to get the service from the single distribution company. You must know all the distribution companies are government owned. All the distribution companies are government owned. There is no participation of the private sector. There is no participation of the private sector. Do you find any private power supplier, power distributor? No. Everything is publicly owned. This is creating a sort of a bureaucratic problem, because you know what is the feature of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is known for the inefficiency and delays. So such thing definitely restrict the choice of the people. Not only that, they are not efficient, they are not upgrading their technology. Okay, for that reason you must permit the, what is that, private distribution. You must permit the private distribution. For that reason, this particular amendment bill proposes you need to give the licenses to any other person whoever wants to distribute the electricity. Any company whoever wants to distribute the electricity, that those people must be given licenses. Then do they require to lay down their own power lines in order to distribute the energy? Is it possible and feasible? No. So that is the reason why they have been given, they will be given the power to, or opportunity to use the existing infrastructure. The existing infrastructure can be used by any new power distributor, whoever is granted with the license. It means you are relaxing the power distribution system. You are liberalizing the power distribution system, so that anybody who is interested, who is having the technology, he can indulge in the power distribution in the country, right? Not only that, it will also mention a time-bound power distribution licenses. Within the 90 days of the application for the power licenses, distribution licenses, one must be given with the license. Are you able to understand? So it means there is no political influence. There will be no scope for the political influence, so that the licenses must be given on the basis of the merits. Okay. Suppose if 90 days time has been exceeded, what is the consequence? The consequence is you must deem that you got the license. It is called as deemed license. What is that? Deemed license. Deemed license means even though you are not granted with the license within 90 days, just on the completion of 90 days period, you must deem that you got the permission. Are you able to understand? This will enforce the accountability on part of the government itself to give the licenses, so that everybody who is eligible must be given license, and if somebody is denied with the license, they must be intimated within 90 days. Otherwise, it is deemed that you got the license. So this kind of accountability is fixed on the government. Okay. Not only that, in every state there will be commissions called as electricity regulatory commissions. What is that? Electricity regulatory commissions, ERCs. For example, what is the regulator which will regulate the telecom industry in the country? TRAI. What is a TRAI? Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. You just take it for granted, any sector which is having the role or participation of the private sector, that will be regulated not by the government, that will be regulated by independent authority. For example, you take banking sector. Banking sector, whether the banking sector is having the private banks or not? Yes, it is having the private banks. So hence, who is the regulator? Reserve Bank of India. Whether is it a statutory body or executive body? Statutory body. Okay. Similarly, insurance sector, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, that is also a regulator which is regulating the insurance market. Similarly, TRAI is also regulating the telecom industry. It also includes the public company, that is BSNL. Are you able to understand? Similarly, that kind of regulatory body has been created for the electricity sector, that is called as Electricity Regulatory Commission. Okay, it will be regulating the power sector. So whether, because in the power sector, suppose in the distribution dimension there is no participation of the private sector, but in the generation activity there is a huge involvement of the private sector. Private players are also there to produce the energy in the country. So hence, definitely this electricity market must be regulated. That's the reason why this ERC has been, what is that, established. Most of the governments are not ready to fill the vacancies in the ERCs, because ERC, the major function of the ERC is to, what is that, revise the electricity tariffs. If it is not functional properly, what will happen? The electricity sector cannot serve the interest of the people, because if it is not revising the tariffs on the timeline and on timely basis, what will happen? The discoms will be overburdened with the debts. So hence, the proper reconstitution of the ERC is very, very important. Sometimes what will happen? Government is not filling the vacancies in the ERCs. That is the reason why this bill proposes, suppose the ERC of one state is vacant. Okay, the positions in the ERC of one state is vacant. Then what will happen? The ERC of the other state will come into the picture. So other state ERC can come and serve the role of the ERC of your state. You just understand what kind of strong regulatory structure is being established by this regulatory bill. Okay, right. Next important thing is, every discom must be having certain reserve funds. Every discom must be having reserve funds. What is the reserve funds? Because you have to purchase the electricity only with money. You can't keep the dues with the generation companies. This is also another important thing. I told you just now the impact of the cascading effect. If discoms are not paying to the generators, generators are not able to pay the Coal India Limited. This is a kind of a cascading situation. Hence, it also addressed that particular dimension also. Moreover, the ERC has been given with the civil courts powers of the civil courts. It means whatever the order that is passed by the ERC, that will be enforceable in nature. Okay, suppose if you don't enforce, that will invite the contempt of the court. The ERC will approach the judiciary for the sake of the relief. So such kind of powers have been vested under the Electricity Amendment Bill. Okay, and one more important thing, there are other dimensions also. What will happen? One more important thing, the government also proposes to enable regulators to fix minimum tariff ceiling. What is that? Minimum tariff ceiling. Suppose many actors have entered into the fray. For example, even the private distribution companies also entered into the distribution activities. What will happen? There will be unhealthy competition. Unhealthy competition means, did you see the tendency of Jio? When it was introduced newly into the market, purposefully it has reduced the tariffs so that all the companies will be losing the customers. Okay, whenever it gathered the required strength of the customers, what it has done? Simply it has raised the tariffs. Such kind of unhealthy competition may be there. So in order to limit that, the bill also proposes there will be minimum tariff ceiling will be provided. So it means this is the minimum tariff. So any company which has to charge the customers, they must be charging only more than the minimum tariff. You can't go less than the minimum tariff. So that is provided in this particular bill. You just understand how smoothly the government wants to liberalize the sector, okay, by liberalizing the power sector distribution, power distribution in the country. So this is not to benefit the private actors. We generally look at the privatization in a kind of a negative outlook. In a pessimistic sense, we will be looking towards the privatization. But essentially, not every privatization is bad, because when the public sector is not functioning up to the mark, who will be at the losing end? People themselves, because we are paying the money. You just see the plight of the distribution companies across the states. You just see here, Uttar Pradesh distribution companies are owing how much? 18,946 crores as a debt. Okay. Similarly, Madhya Pradesh 16,240. Rajasthan, okay, it means Uttar Pradesh government owes 18,946 crores to the distribution companies, and Madhya Pradesh 16,240 crores. Rajasthan owes distribution to the distribution companies at the tune of 15,597 crores. So it means, what is this money? Because governments have announced the freebies to the farmers, and distribution companies have distributed the electricity, but they were not paid with the money. So these are the dues. Eventually, if you try to take the example of Telangana, in Telangana almost all 70,000 crore rupees are the outstanding debt for the distribution companies. So it includes the government dues, and also it includes also losses of the distribution companies. How much? 70,000 crore. If these losses are keep on increasing, what will happen? The entire power sector will collapse. So central government has timely introduced this particular bill. This is one dimension. I told you another dimension. What is that another dimension? Coal sector, 80 to 90% of the coal sector under the Coal India Limited control, because in 1980s there was the nationalization of the coal industry. So because of that reason, Coal India Limited was established. This Coal India Limited actually operates all the coal mines in the country. But this Coal India Limited is also facing the problems due to the green clearances. The Ministry of Environment and the National Green Tribunal, they are not granting the licenses that easily. Okay. Secondly, what is the second reason? The dues which are being owed by the generation companies. So, and moreover, the inefficiencies are also there with the Coal India Limited. So hence, Government of India had passed an ordinance in the year 2020 to liberalize the coal sector also. Because 80% of the reserves are under the Coal India Limited control. So government wants to liberalize. How it liberalizes? Actually, previously, coal mines used to be allocated to only to the captive industries. What is that? Captive industries. What is that captive industries? Captive industries means when they are having the requirement of the coal for the sake of a specific industrial activity. Suppose where the coal is required, tell me. Steel industry, coal is required. So that kind of industry, and suppose thermal power plants, so those can own the coal. Those can be allocated with the coal. So only the industries which are having the end use of the coal, only those industries used to be allocated with the coal mines. Because of that reason, it was very, very restricted sector, so that everybody cannot enter. But now, because of the liberalization policy that has taken place in the year 2020, any company who is interested at the coal mining can enter into the industry. What is the advantage here? Because there will be increased scale of mining, coal mining. Because of that reason, increased coal availability in the market. Because of that increased coal availability, increased electricity generation. So this is another dimension of the policy. Did you understand this? Yes. But states are having their reservations. The reservations of states. Reservations means they have the objections. One is they are accusing the central government that they are violating the federal principles. How it is a violation of federal principle? Because they accuse that central government did not consult the states while they are going with the reform measures. Secondly, second concern is, if this particular private sector is invited into the distribution activities, because of the competition, private sector naturally favors the high-end use customers. They may ignore the requirements of the rural market. Okay, so this is the second criticism. Okay, that is ignoring the interest of the rural customers, that is farm sector. Third one is the problem of farm subsidies and cross subsidies. What is that? Farm subsidies and cross subsidies. What is a farm subsidy? You are giving the electricity at the free of cost or at the subsidized price. This is one. Secondly, cross subsidy means you generally see electricity is charged at two different rates. Did you observe? For the high-end customers, that is commercial customers, it is charged at one price. For the domestic customers, it is charged at the another price. Whether these two things will be taken note of by the private sector or not? This is another question, whether the private sector takes this particular perspective into the consideration. What will be the impact of the private distribution companies over this particular matter? These are the three important issues raised by the states. Bottom line is, and one more important thing, the central government as a part of this bill also had introduced RPO, repurchase obligation. Okay, so renewable energy purchase obligation. What is a renewable energy purchase obligation? What is that? It means the state governments have to purchase the electricity from the renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources. Why? What is the reason? Government of India has given a binding agreement in the Paris Climate Agreement, stating that we are going to increase the availability of the renewable energy in the electricity market. So naturally, every distribution company is obligated to purchase certain amount of energy from the renewable energy sector. Okay, and one more important thing I told you, India has promised by 2030 it is going to increase the share of renewable energy by 40%. So already we have attained that particular target by this 2022 itself. Then the increased electricity must be sold to the distribution companies. So this is also another important dimension. This is also another important dimension of the electricity bill. Basically, states are not ready to purchase the renewable energy. Why? What are the reasons? Reason number one, renewable energy is comparatively costlier compared to the thermal based power. Okay, and point number two is, states are showing some nepotism. You name any politician, they will be having one or the other power generation projects, private power generators, and the state enters into the power purchase agreements. What is that? Power purchase agreements to with such industries, and they are benefiting their own people. So because of the new electricity bill, because of this particular bill, by pressurizing the distribution companies to purchase the renewable energy, what is the problem? The nexus between the industries as well as the government is at the stake, because they may be losing the commission. There is no scope for the corruption. Okay, and they have to completely invalidate the PPAs. They have to renegotiate the power purchase agreements. These are all the problems that are to be faced by the states. But these problems are not genuine problems, because of this particular bill, there is a possibility that the nepotism in the power sector can be completely broken away, because central government is properly defining how much power you must be able to take from the renewable energy sources, so that the nepotism and nexus can be broken. So these are all the benefits of the, what is that? Electricity bill. Did you understand what is the purpose? Purpose is to ensure the good governance. Development is nothing but increasing the choice of the people. So choice is enhanced only when there are multiple producers and multiple suppliers. So that is made possible by the new electricity bill. Okay, it is yet to be enacted, but it is very highly debated and hotly debated. You take the Chief Minister of Telangana, he is outrightly opposing the electricity bill. So people must know the merits of this particular bill also. Okay, right. Next one nation, one fertilizer. Next concept is one nation, one fertilizer. We know one nation, one ration card. Okay, one ration. So similarly, one nation, one fertilizer. So what is that? The Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. It is a nodal ministry for the fertilizers in India. Okay, right. So it has decided to implement one nation, one fertilizer by introducing single brand for the fertilizers. Single brand for the fertilizers and logo. Okay, there will be a brand which is promoted by the government of India. You just understand the tune of subsidies, fertilizer subsidies in the country. It is almost approximately 1 lakh crores. How much? 1 lakh crore. This much amount being given by the government for the sake of the farm sector, especially for the fertilizers. So then people must also know they are getting this particular huge subsidized fertilizers. So if you are completely branding with the private sector logo, people may not be able to know. So whether they are being subsidized or not. For that reason, Government of India had introduced Pradhana Mantri Bharatiya Janurvarak Pariyojana, PM-BJP. PM-BJP. So they also have their objective to promote themselves. Okay. So look at this. So in that way, every fertilizer bag will be having this particular logo. okay, and this particular title will be given on the every fertilizer bag. It means, yes, these fertilizers are not produced by the government, these are produced by the private companies, but private companies are being subsidized by the government. Are you able to understand? The gap between the production cost and whatever the amount that is paid by the people, okay, that gap is being shared by the government. So that is called as subsidy. So that's the reason why people, whoever receives the fertilizer bag, they will be getting this particular logo on the bag, and 1/3 of the space will be left to the individual private company to mention their name, and remaining portion it will be having this particular logo. Okay, so this is a kind of advertising tactic by the government. So a single brand name and the logo of the Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Janurvarak Pariyojana will have to be displayed on the bag. But you just understand, in the UPSC they don't ask you about this particular thing, but taking the cue from this particular scheme, the UPSC may be asking you what is the fertilizer policy in the country, how the chemical fertilizers usage is being discouraged in India. Are you able to understand? The demand of the question would be to extract the information how the government is trying to limit the use of fertilizers in the country. Tell me whether the fertilizers are good for the soil. In the increased quantity, definitely they will be harming the biodiversity, they will be polluting the environment, they may be killing the natural flora that is there in the soil. The microbial flora in the soil will be disturbed by the increased amount of the fertilizers. Okay, right. So that's the reason why the kind of question may come in the examination. So let us take a look. Okay, so first of all, what is the purpose of this particular branding? One is to fix the MRP. So no fertilizer company should be selling the fertilizers beyond this particular maximum retail price. Whichever fertilizer industry sells above this particular MRP will be losing the support from the government. Okay, and not only that, strictly controlling the fertilizer availability. Strictly controlling the fertilizer availability. You just see this particular case. See this point. Actually, the ideal ratio between nitrogen, phosphorus and potash, how much it should be? 4:2:1. This is what the ideal ratio. Okay, so this is the healthy proportion of the fertilizers in the soil. If you use the fertilizers more than this particular proportion, what will happen? It will not be used by the plants, and moreover it will be acting as a inhibitors for the microbial life. So that may be proving harmful to the microbial life also, right? Beyond this particular proportion, it is not good. But take the example of Punjab. What is the proportion here? 33.7:8:1. See this particular case. And on the other hand, what is the case of Kerala? 1.3:0.7:1. One state is largely benefited and another state is very benefited at the lower levels. So it is being deprived. In fact, the Kerala is under the deprivation of the fertilizers. So because of this strategy, the government will be ensuring the proper distribution of the fertilizers throughout the India. So it tries to address the distribution inequalities across the country by means of this particular branding. Every bag will be having the state specific information also. Because of that reason, the diversion or excessive usage in any particular state will be limited. Okay, right. So, and moreover, another important thing is fertilizer subsidy also shot up. So naturally, you need to limit the fertilizer usage also. Okay, so actually if you try to see, in Rajasthan 70 kg per hectare is being used. What is that? NPK fertilizers. And in Telangana, how much? 250 kg per hectare. You can see how hugely these are being used. Farmers don't care anything, in fact, because I also personally saw that. You know, they blindly believe, yes, this soil requires fertilizer, then they will dump the fertilizer as it is. So they don't understand this particular consequence. Okay, further it will limit the productivity of the soil. Then what is the fertilizer subsidy? What is the fertilizer subsidy? Just now I told you, fertilizer subsidy means the gap between the cost of production or cost of imports and the what is the amount that is paid by the farmers, what is the gap, that gap is borne out by the central government, that is called as fertilizer subsidy, right. The difference between the cost of production and the actual amount paid by the farmers, Okay, that is the subsidy portion borne by the government, that is called as fertilizer subsidy. Fertilizer subsidy is increasing on year basis. Okay, see this particular map. In this map, see here, so this particular red color, yellow color bar is, what is that? Urea. And this particular green color, what is this color? Blue color, 37,372 crores. That is nothing but, what is that? Nutrient based fertilizers. So adding these two, how much it is coming? More than 1 lakh crores, more than 1 lakh crores. So that much amount is borne out by the government of India. So now government wants to control this particular excessive usage of the fertilizers. So by using various policies. Okay, what are the major forms of the subsidies? Subsidies are given in two dimensions. Okay, one is subsidy on urea, second one is subsidy on non-urea fertilizers. Indian soils are generally deficient of nitrogen. Because of that reason, farmers are very hugely dependent upon the urea. Okay, so hence government gives the heavy subsidy on the urea, complete subsidy. Okay, so the center pays subsidy on the urea to the fertilizers manufacturers. Usually the subsidy is directly paid to the subsidizer manufacturers, and they will be selling it to the farmers in the name of maximum retail price. Okay, whatever the gap that is there, that will be paid in the form of DBT, direct benefit transfers. Okay, that is one way. Secondly, subsidy on the non-urea fertilizers. Okay, take the example of NPK. So N is completely being subsidized. It means absolute subsidy is available. But in the case of PK, potash and phosphorus, complete subsidy is not available. Government will be paying only part payment. Only some percentage of the price will be borne out by the government. In the case of urea, complete subsidy is available. In the case of other nutrients, complete subsidy is not available. So that is called as nutrient based subsidy. What is that? Nutrient based subsidy. Based on the amount of nutrients in the fertilizer, the government will be paying some money, but not complete money. That is one thing. Secondly, the urea prices are completely controlled by the government. Whereas the potash and phosphorus prices are not completely controlled. These are completely unregulated. So these will be increasing according to the market prices. What is the logic here? The problem is potash and phosphorus, these are not locally available. We are depending upon the imports. Okay, urea can be manufactured in the country, but potash and phosphorus, they depend upon the ores. Ores are not there in the country in the sufficient levels. So naturally, in order to limit the usage of the PK, what we have to do? We have to leave it to the market. So market prices are applicable in the case of the non-urea fertilizers. Only partly, very small amount is subsidized by the government. Okay, that is called as nutrient based subsidy. Right. So nutrients based subsidy means a fixed amount of subsidy decided on the annual basis. Okay, it is provided on each grade of subsidized phosphatic and potassic fertilizers depending upon its nutrient content. It aims to ensure the balanced use of fertilizers. This is what the sole purpose of the nutrient based fertilizers. Okay, nutrient based subsidy scheme. Right. This is another dimension how the government is trying to limit the use of the fertilizers. Okay, right. Next one is Neem coated urea. As I told you, urea industry is completely unregulated. I told you, right? I mean completely regulated, and government is paying out full subsidy for the urea. Because of that reason, urea is being highly used by the farmers. Some of the urea has the possibility of being diverted to the other industries also. For example, plastic industry. It also makes use of the urea. The subsidized urea is diverted to other industries. In order to limit that, Government of India had introduced neem coated urea. When the urea is coated with the neem, what will happen? That will be suitable only for the agriculture, not for the industrial usage. And government also reported, it also leads to a lot of improvements. Improvement in the soil health, improvement with respect to pest and disease attacks. There are many things. Even certain crops also reported their productivity. For example, tur and red gram, soybean, so maize and sugarcane, paddy, they also increase their productivity. This is one way. You just understand how the government is using many policy levers in order to discourage the fertilizer utility in the country. Another important thing, what is that? Nano Urea. Have you heard this? What is Nano Urea? Yes, liquid form of urea. Okay, so it is actually developed indigenously. This is another important thing. Okay, so it is a liquid form of urea. It is also called as nanoparticle. It is having the nanoparticles, and it is equivalent to the, you know, the general grained urea. Okay, so for example, it contains 40,000 mg per liter of nitrogen in 500 ml bottle. That will be equivalent to the bag of urea. This small bottle will be equivalent to the entire bag of urea. So in that way, you are trying to, you know, minimize the utility of the urea by using at the lesser quantities and making it highly productive. So what are the advantages? It reduces the input costs. It is environment friendly. It is also able to improve nutritional value, increase the farmer's income, enhance the crop productivity, and cheaper than the conventional urea. These are the benefits of the Nano Urea. It is developed at Nano Biotechnology Research Center in Gujarat. So this is what Indian innovation. So India had found its own solution. India is facing this problem of excessive urea utilization. Now we found our own solution by discovering this particular Nano Urea. And India is dependent upon imports to meet the urea requirements also. You just understand, India is able to produce urea, but at the same time, it is dependent upon the urea imports also. Even it is also the same case with the coal also. India houses one of the largest coal reserves in the world, but still, because of our inefficiency in the coal mining, we are forced to import. Similarly, urea is also being imported. Similarly, the edible oils are also being imported. Okay, so there are many similar things. Okay, what is Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperatives Limited? This is what the supplier for the fertilizers. This Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Limited is a cooperative. This is also called as multi-state cooperative institution. What is that? Multi-state cooperative institution. What is a cooperative? What is the meaning of cooperative? Term cooperative means? Cooperative ante enti? Cooperative means it is a voluntary organization. It is a voluntary organization. Voluntary organization means the people in a particular locality who are having the similar interest, they will be grouping together into a particular cooperative. And this particular cooperative will be having a common goal for all these members. For example, milk cooperative. Secondly, they will be controlling this particular institution in the form of democracy. Okay, by using the democratic control, this particular cooperatives are controlled because the management of the cooperative is elected by the members. And it will also be having open membership. Everybody who is having the similar interest can be the member of the cooperative. Actually, this cooperative concept, it is the brainchild of the Mahatma Gandhi, because Mahatma Gandhi believed in Grama Swarajya. Grama Swarajya means a self-reliant village republics concept. Okay, so it means a village must be having Panchayat Raj institutions so that self-governance is possible. A village must be having the production activities so that he has promoted the idea of cottage industries, household industries. The village must also be having a community participation in the development that is possible with the cooperatives. All these forms will be leading to a concept of debureaucratization. What is that? Debureaucratization. Because bureaucracy is not able to meet the aspirations of the people. It is having its own limitations. So that let us increase the participation of the people in the process of development. For that reason, this particular idea has been introduced and it has been successful also. You take the Amul dairy. It became an international brand now. So when Amul becomes international brand, we should all appreciate, because not the corporates are benefited. Who are being benefited? The common people are being benefited. So in the same fashion, this Indian Farmers Fertilizer Corporations is also a cooperative. Okay, right. It is one of the India's biggest cooperative societies. In fact, it is the world's biggest cooperative society. Not only India. Okay, it is the world's biggest cooperative society, and it was founded in the year 1967. Okay, so this is what the fertilizer sector. Next one. Next important concept is Mjneriga. What is Mjneriga? Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guarantee Act. Okay, do you know Article 41? What does Article 41 talk about? Right to work, right to education, right to public assistance. So one of the objective of the state is to ensure the employment to the people, right? So whether Article 41 is justiciable, right? No, it is not justiciable. Okay, you can't enforce this Article 41 through the courts. But Government of India itself has enacted Mjneriga. So it is a law which will be giving you the right to work. Actually, Indian agriculture system is a seasonal agriculture. Am I right? It is a season based. So definitely once agricultural activities are ceased to exist, what will happen? There will be a lean season during which the rural laborers cannot find the work. Okay, in order to ensure the rural labor in the lean season of agriculture to get the work, this Mjneriga was enacted. What is that? Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guarantee Act. Okay, it is a wage based rural work, wage based rural work. So for the amount of work a person does, for that reason he will be paid with money, right? And what is this particular scheme? Is it a state scheme or centrally sponsored scheme? Centrally sponsored scheme. Okay, it is a centrally sponsored scheme. It means centrally sponsored scheme means both central government and state government will be contributing. Okay, right. 75% is paid by the central government, 25% is to be paid by the state government. And who is the implementer? Who implements this particular Mjneriga? State government implements. State government implements the Mjneriga. Next important thing. Usually schemes are of two types. Schemes are of two types. One is demand based and supply based. Demand driven and supply driven. You take double bedroom houses in Telangana. Whether is it demand driven or supply driven? Supply driven. Supply driven. So whatever the government gives, you should get satisfied. Okay. Some people may not be able to get also. But this Mjneriga is not like that. Whoever demands the work, he must be provided with the work. In case if I don't give you work, what is the consequence? I need to pay the penalty. That is the compensation clause is also there in the Mjneriga. Within 15 days of the application for the work, I should give the work. Otherwise, I should pay the compensation. Okay. In other words, this Mjneriga is a kind of legal entitlement for the work. What is that? Legal entitlement. In other words, right to work has been enforced through the Mjneriga. Okay. So this will ensure at least 100 days employment in the rural areas. 100 days employment in the rural areas, especially during the lean season. What is the requirement? A person needs to fulfill the age of 18 years for the sake of application. Okay, and he must be resident of that village. These are the two requirements. Okay, right. So Government of India is also implementing this scheme with huge budgetary allocation at the tune of 70 to 80,000 crores. Okay, it is not a simple amount. Okay, right. But it is suffering from various problems. It is suffering from various problems. There is a delayed payment. Okay, and especially Mjneriga is primarily targeting not only rural wage employment but also to create the durable assets in the rural areas. What is that? Durable assets. Durable assets means those assets must be able to enhance the agricultural productivity. Those assets must be able to enhance the living quality of the village. So that is what the primary purpose. Okay, right. So in the light of the various criticisms, actually there is a committee called as Parliamentary Standing Committee on Rural Development. What is that? Parliamentary Standing Committee on Rural Development. I told you in the last class what are the standing committees. Do you remember? Standing committees are nothing but extended arms of the parliament. So they will ensure the administrative accountability whenever the parliament is not in the session. So they will be continuously working on the public matters. So they have given a report, okay, on the Mjneriga scheme, and they have given 33 recommendations. How many recommendations they have given? 33 recommendations, and government has accepted 26 recommendations. In that way, the parliamentary committees, they are helping, the government because of their research activities and also their continuous legislative work. So what are the suggestions given? So increase the number of work days to how many days? 150 days. Previously how many days are there? 100 days. Promote women-centric work. Usually if you try to see the nature of work in the Mjneriga, both men and women are given with the same work. In fact, it is not right. Women must be given women-centric work. You should find out the work which is suitable for the women. Okay, so that is another recommendation. Secondly, increase the wages and linking it with inflation. The way the inflation is increasing, you must also pay the amount in the proportionate manner. But in fact, it is being implemented now. Consumer price index for the agricultural labor has been linked with the Mjneriga. So the moment the inflation rises, proportionately the wages will also be increased. Timely funding. Okay, 71% of the transactions are going beyond the mandated 7 days. Actually the payment must be completed within 7 days. But what is happening? The payment is being delayed. And convergence with rural development schemes, various rural development schemes. For example, in the rural areas, suppose there is a Indira Awas Yojana, Prime Minister Awas Yojana, for example. What is that? Village housing program. Why can't you link this Mjneriga with that particular scheme? Are you able to understand? For Awas Yojana, for a housing project, government is giving money. Mjneriga also, government is giving money. Okay, if Mjneriga labor is used in the house construction, whether the money can be saved or not? Yes, it can be saved. And it can also create the durable assets also. So this is what the very good recommendation it has given. Moreover, Mjneriga labor can also be used in the agricultural activities, especially the downtrodden sections, especially SCs and STs. Their cultivation needs can be satisfied by the Mjneriga labor. Okay, that is another recommendation. Next one, roll back the system of caste based wages. What is that? Caste based wages. What is a caste based wages? Actually, Government of India has divided the people into 2 categories. 3 categories in fact, SCs, STs and other sections, especially for the requirement of Mjneriga. SCs, STs and other category. So other category includes OCs and OBCs. Okay, and the payment is processed in such a way that STs will be receiving the money first, thereafter SCs, thereafter the other castes. And most of the times STs get the money faster and other communities are getting very delayed payments. You just understand, because of that reason in the village, whether the tensions will be rising or not? Definitely yes. Because when you are giving the favor to one community over the other community, definitely that may create the differences in the people. So it also recommended you must roll back this particular, what is that, caste based payment system. This is what the recommendation from the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Rural Development. Okay, these points can be better noted to write the mains answers. Suppose in the examination they may ask you, review the functioning of Mjneriga scheme, review the operation of the Mjneriga scheme, whether is it able to achieve the intended objectives, comment. So such question may be asked. Okay, how do you answer? You must write the brief introduction of the Mjneriga and what is the scale of implementation of Mjneriga, how it is able to achieve the objectives. You must write that. You must supply some data also. And then you must write the limitations. Then you have to come up with the suggestions. And usually you should not write your own suggestions. You should always cite a particular report or a particular Parliamentary Standing Committee or CAG or anything. So in this scenario you can easily take the recommendation of the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Did you understand? Next, India's stand on Rohingyas. Tell me who are Rohingyas? Rohingyas are highly persecuted Muslim minorities in the world. Okay, they are the original residents of Myanmar. Okay, actually in the Myanmar there is a western province called as Rakhine Province. What is that? Rakhine Province. Actually, if you try to see the British impact over the India, British have indulged in a lot of economic activities in the country, such as tea cultivation, mining and other issues. Especially speaking, if you try to see Assam, for the sake of tea cultivation, they have brought the Bengalis and Biharis to the Assam tribal areas. That has created the tensions. Similarly, it is also assumed that these Rohingyas are also Bengali origin Muslims who were taken by the Britishers into the Myanmar. Okay, and actually Myanmar got the independence in which year? 1948. It is the year of the independence for the Myanmar. Soon after it got the independence, it has given the citizenship for everybody whose generations, at least two generations were there in the country. What is the parameter? 2 generations. But later in the year 1962, Myanmar was actually occupied by the military. So military has declared its power. The democratically elected government was completely disposed of by the military rulers and they started ruling the country. So military dictators started ruling the country. And they have started the discrimination between the Myanmari native people and also Rohingyas. Actually, most of the Myanmaris are Buddhist. Myanmar is a kind of a Buddhist country. They started differentiating the Muslims as well as the Buddhist. And they started giving a secondary treatment to the Muslim people in the country, that is especially the Rohingyas. Rohingyas were deprived with the citizenship rights, and they had no documents, no help by the government, and the violence was sanctioned by the government. So if anybody commits a violence on Rohingyas, no case will be filed. So such kind of brutality was there in the Myanmar. Hence, in the year 2012, from 2012 onwards, the Rohingyas started migrating to the other countries. Rohingyas started migrating to the other countries. Especially in India, almost all 40,000 Rohingyas are there. 3,50,000 Rohingyas are there in Pakistan. Okay, near about 8 lakh Rohingyas are there in Bangladesh. Okay, so there is a demand on the India. India should accept this particular Rohingyas. India should give the asylum to the refugees. Refugees means who are migrating from one country to the other countries because of the distress, because of the persecution, because of the torture by their government. Okay, so now whether India is accepting these refugees? No, it is not accepting. Why it is not accepting? India is having its own reasons. Reason number one is India is not party to the Global Refugee Convention. Global Refugee Convention, India is not party. India did not give any international commitment that we are going to give the refugee asylum in the country. Point number one. Point number two, the Ministry of Home Affairs has categorically declared these particular Rohingyas can be used by the terrorists to destabilize the country. Point number three, since India is having huge cultural sensitivities, no region of the country is going to accept these Rohingyas. So hence Government of India has cited many reasons. Okay, so for example, Foreigners Act, Passports Act, Extradition Act of 1962, Citizenship Act of 1955. Any of these legislation does not mention the term refugee. So there is no difference between a foreigner who is an illegal immigrant to the country and a refugee. There is no difference. Are you able to understand? Who is an illegal immigrant? The one who is coming from one country to the other country without any legal and valid documents. He is called as illegal immigrant. Refugee means who is because of atrocities committed in his home country, if he is migrating from one country to the other country in the form of distress, he is called as refugee. Such kind of differentiation is not made in any of these acts, whether it is Foreigners Act or Citizenship Act or anything. Okay, that is the reason why the Government of India started giving the refugees a temporary home, especially by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, they started giving what is a temporary asylum in the flats that are meant for the economically weaker sections. And this is what a temporary asylum, and after that the Ministry of Home Affairs will be deporting these Rohingyas to the Myanmar. So this is what the stand of India with respect to Rohingyas. Okay, right. Did you understand the concepts? Mana fast ayinda ardham cheskunnara? Yes, thank you so much.